So let's talk about 4-bit jamming. Here is, as you remember, I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this course that you shouldn't overplay Ace-Jack, Ace-10 type of hands. Usually those hands you want to avoid 4-bit shoving. Shove hands that have the highest EV. I'm going to show you that on an example in a few moments. When analyzing an RHRC, ICMizer RHRC is the Hold'em Resource Calculator, I highly recommend getting either the RHRC or the ICMizer. They're very powerful tools, and always start with Willin's stack off range and then adjust his 3-betting frequency in order to find out what hands you can jam in with. But I don't want to just talk around, I want to show you it here really quick. So we have this situation that we have around 30 big blinds, we open raise from the cutoff, and as you can see, we open raise this range. Maybe sometimes more offsuited aces, but it's not about the range here. We're open raising with, we want to see what hands we can 4-bet jam with. So here, this is Willin's 3-bet range, but we not start with this range because this is a bit guessing around, scrambling around. We want to start with, okay, what is Willin calling if we jam? And he's obviously 3-bet calling nines, ace queen off, and ace queen suited for 30 big blinds, or he's supposed to stack off with those hands. I mean, there are regulars who also 3-bet call eights and ace jack suited, but we keep it with that range. And then we look into his entire 3-betting range. So then we want to take a look, okay, how loose he has to 3-bet in order for us to start adding bluffs. So let's assume he's never 3-betting as a bluff. He's always 3-betting nines and ace queen, and then also calling that. What is the range we can 4-bet bluff, 4-bet jam with? And as you can see, ace king 10, not even tens. So we can only jam tens and ace queen if we know that our opponent is capable of bluffing. Apparently, you will see those opponents very rarely that they don't have opponents that don't have a bluffing range at all. So let's give them a few bluffs here, like suited aces, suited connectors, something like this. Let's say around 8%, and then we can jam nines, king queen suited, ace queen, and ace queen off. King queen is pretty close though. Really surprising is here, as you can see, already the EV of ace jack off and ace 10 off. And this is actually not really surprising. Those hands, they're just performing so bad when you get caught. Even king 4 suited or king 5 suited is better than ace 10 off. Even king 8 suited is better than ace 10 off. The low suited aces are way better than ace jack and ace 10 off. You also can see that the pocket pairs, they are those hands which, if our opponent starts bluffing more, are probably going to be plus EV. So let's see. Let's say he's 3-betting a few more suited aces, 5-4 suited, and jack 8 suited. And also, he's not calling them, so you can see they're white. I just highlighted just selected the nines and ace queen hands and better. And then we can see what we can 4-bet jam. And now you can see the pocket pairs, the suited broadways, and still ace 10 off, not good at all. Even king jack off is better. Even king 8 suited is better. Even ace jack off, like king jack off, king queen off is better than ace jack off. Even queen jack off is better than ace jack off. Ace jack off is a hand you never want to 4-bet jam with. And your opponent has to 3-bet around 10% here in that very situation. But I mean, what else he can 3-bet with? All the other hands are also good hands to flat call with. So, and even if your opponent goes loser with for value like eights and ace jack suited, ace jack off and ace 10 off becomes even worse. So keep in mind, if your opponent is somewhat capable of bluffing, pocket pairs are always good to 4-bet jam with for around 30 big blinds if you're in a somewhat late position battle. Also, it's totally reasonable if you open raise from MP and someone 3-bets you from cutoff or hijack. In those positions, people also can still bluff. Yet, their overall 3-bet frequency is slower, but also their value range is smaller. I mean, they're probably not 3-betting and stacking off ace, queen, and nines. You should flat call those hands. So they don't need to have that much bluffs because their value range is smaller. Anyway, it's all about the ratio, the value to bluff ratio. If your opponent is only 3-betting 2% overall, but he's only 3-betting aces for value and all the other 1.5% of the time he is 3-betting as a bluff, you see the value to bluff ratio is so bluff heavy that we can basically 4-bet jam our entire range. So don't get too much focused on the overall 3-bet stat. Always look, okay, what is the value to bluff ratio? And you want to have around 50% fold equity with 30 big blinds in order to start jamming hands like king queen suited, king jack suited, or low poker pairs. And as you can see, it's the value, the EV is pretty high. Hence, I would not jam if the EV is lower than plus 0.2. So yeah, but in general, people are calling eights and ace jack suited, so we have a bit more fold equity, and then you see that the pocket pairs are really good hands to jam with. Even ace jack off, ace 10 off is still not profitable. So if your opponent has an overall 3-bet stat from the button versus cutoff of around 7-8%, you should rather be more on the tighter side and just jam your value hands, 8s and 9s, maybe 7s, but that's pretty much it. If your opponent is 3-betting more than 10%, you can go looser. You can also start jamming some suited aces. And as you can see, queen 10, jack 10 suited, all those hands are performing pretty good against our opponent's calling range. And also really interesting is you can see 5-4 suited is better, minus 0.67, than 8-7 suited. Why? Because we have way more equity. The thing is, our open-end straight draw possibilities are more live, because our opponent, he's bet calling with a hand, 3-bet calling with 9s and 10s. So a hand like 9-8 suited has less equity against hands like pocket 9s, 10s, and jacks, but 5-4 suited performs just way better. It also has 2 live cards against ace king anyway, so there's not such a huge difference with 5-4 suited and 9-8 suited against ace king, ace queen, yet 5-4 suited performs way better against 10s, 9s, and jacks, which is a decently high fraction of our opponent's value range. So yeah, when you analyze hands in HRC / IC Miser, always start with those hands that your opponent is calling off. So those hands you are sure, you know, okay, those are the no-brainers. He's 3-bet calling them all day long. And then the next step is adjusting his 3-betting range. And then you go little by little, adjust them, and then you see at what point your hand becomes a profitable 4-bet jam. So how much does he need to bluff and that your hand becomes a profitable 4-bet jam? Because at some point he doesn't need to have that many bluffs to see, okay, this is actually a no-brainer 4-bet jam here with my hand. Or your opponent has to 3-bet bluffs in such a ridiculous high frequency that it's very unrealistic that this will be ever the case. That means your 4-bet jam is probably not profitable. Yeah, usually, and also in general, we usually start 4-bet shoving with less than 30 big blinds. There are some exceptions, ace king type of hands, 10s, you know, you can also jam them with 40 big blinds and less. Remember what I've been telling you when I was showing you the ranges, ace king, pocket 10s, pocket jacks. It's even, especially in late position battles with 50 big blinds and less, especially with ace king, it's never be too bad, especially when you're a beginner. But I would always advise either 4-betting it or just calling and play post flop, depending which position you are, or depending on your stack size.